Hello, welcome to the first ever episode of the Atlantic Robot Show. My name's Ian Kelosky.
My name's Simon Young.
Welcome. Basically, while we're here, is we just want to start a little discussion about some of the stuff we end up talking about down here all the time. Anyway, mostly music business related. Even going to be some stuff about actual music, a little bit about production. And this is an opinion show. Our opinions, obviously. So we're looking forward to hearing back from some people and see what people, if you agree, if you disagree, what you have to say about some of the things we talk about. I wanted to get started by talking about some general stuff, what's going on these days, about the music business, how things are flowing.
What's your opinion, Ian, of the music business today?
Well, you know, I'm a musician. I've been lucky enough to be a professional musician for a few years now, a lot of years now. And obviously, when you work in a job, all my friends are musicians and professional musicians. And it's just funny to hear things and the way people talk about stuff, that things have obviously changed over the past couple of years, as we all know. And it's funny to me to hear what types of people complain about these things, keeping in mind all of them being more or less professional musicians. And, you know, people complaining about things like streaming and the internet and all this stuff and how nobody buys records anymore. And I just hold steadfast to the idea that I think it's honestly better than it's ever been for us. For me, I can tell you firsthand. You know, the people that are complaining about nobody buys CDs anymore, but they probably didn't really sell CDs in the first place. And, you know, it's definitely a different model these days, but, you know, the reach, the opportunity, the feedback, the immediacy of everything, the connection you can have with people, and the amount of how easy it is to actually get to fans is unbelievable to me. Mm. I mean, you come from a bit more of a business side, from the business side of things, but, you know, what do you think? How do you think it's going?
Yeah, I mean, coming to the music business from outside, from a completely different world, and coming into it from a completely different perspective, to me, it seems like it's one of the best times, actually, to be in this business. It's been massively disrupted and is still being disrupted today. And usually when there's a lot of chaos, it's often the best time to get involved. You know, all the gatekeepers, or most of the gatekeepers, and a lot of the challenges that were there in the past for new musicians or even established musicians to develop themselves, get their music out of, these things have disappeared. It's relatively easier than ever to become an artist and get some success, assuming your material is, you know, quote unquote good enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm in the music business now, is because, well, firstly, it's my biggest passion is music. But secondly, now, like I said, there's so many opportunities that I see now, which maybe other people don't. But to me, it's now is the best time ever to get in on the ground floor and build something from nothing, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, when I first started, you know, we had to buy expensive studio time. You know, first of all, you had to get good enough to let me backtrack a second. First of all, I think we need to make it clear that it is not easy to be in the music business. It's just easier than it used to be. It's never been an easy game to be a part of. And I think that people just think, they see I don't know, just a random example, a Katy Perry, and they think, oh my God, it must be so glamorous to be a star. I would contest, can you even possibly imagine how many hours Katy Perry puts into an audition, to a rehearsal, and how big her team is? And, you know, how many people for every one Katy Perry, there's probably 300 people working on that Katy Perry thing. So first of all, it's not easy to be in the music business. I think any job that people do for a hobby is relatively hard to be in because there's a lot of competition. Now, that being said, the way it used to be, there used to literally be a handful of gatekeepers. I would say a generous estimate of how many gatekeepers there used to be even 25 years ago was maybe 200 people, you know? And without going through one of these 200 people in the world, you almost had no shot of ever even, you know, making a living. And I think these days with the commoditization of everything, how easy it is to record, how cheap it is to record, the high level of quality you can get, most importantly, by recording in your bedroom or in a small studio or, you know, with some friends or even do some live stuff. It's amazing. You can literally record something today, get it out in a couple of hours, and hundreds to thousands to potentially millions of people can hear it or see it or whatever. Now, that's not to say that it's easy, because now what we have to contend with is everybody's doing that, you know? Everybody's putting songs out every day, and of the millions of things that come out, I would say probably 999,998 of them are terrible. But that's one thing you have to get through. You used to have to pass through all these hoops, recording in a place, getting through a gatekeeper, getting somebody to put your song in the radio, getting somebody to film a video, pay for all this stuff, put it on MTV or wherever. Now, the only thing you have to do is cut through a bunch of static. And there is a lot of noise out there, and there's a lot of people making a lot of stuff, and a lot of it's even good. So the only job now is to try to break through that noise and get to your fans and find an audience.
Yeah. For me, it's quite an interesting perspective that coming from this from outside, I can see things in black and white that maybe people that have been in the business a long time also see, but people that are new to the business maybe takes time to figure out. But to me, it's so clear that I look at people that are, well, let's call them successful, but you know, what is success in this business? It can mean different things. But let's say popular success, which means they have a significant following of people, of fans, that people like their music. They go to see them in concert, they download their tracks, they stream them, whatever. Compared to people that don't have a big following, and it comes down to me to a couple of simple things. And the first one is, it really is part music and part business. If you want to be a commercially viable, let's say, artist or a singer, a songwriter or musician, to make a living out of it, you have to, I would say, accept that there is some aspects of it that are, you know, not attractive as an artist. You know, as an artist, I want to write songs, I want to produce songs, I want to be in the studio, I want to work with my friends in writing new material, playing new material. I don't want to have to worry about updating social media. I don't want to have to worry about talking to lawyers, accountants, and coming out with a plan to promote my music. You know, I'm not interested, and I totally understand that. But the people I see that are successful focus on that as much as they do on the music, or they have people which focus on that stuff on their behalf. And really it's as much effort involved in that part of an artist's success, whether that be fans, material wealth, fame, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
A big part of that comes from the behind-the-scenes work that either the artist is doing themselves or people around them are doing, the promotion, the advertising, the touring. There's a lot of hard work that goes on, and it's not just the music. That's my point. I mean, Ian, I'm sure you'll agree with this. You know, talent is not necessarily a predictor of success, especially in music.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling my friend today, I mean, I think talent is probably somewhere around 10th or 11th on the list of important factors to be successful in the music business. And successful can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but I think most people agree to be successful.
I would say talent as well can be subjective, but
very, very. And I mean, you know, and it's different things. And I also believe there's a big audience. It's a big world, and there's an audience for almost anything. Finding that audience is the challenge.
Yeah. So to continue my point is, I don't want to go too far into some kind of, you know, trying to define what is talent and what it's not. But as Ian said, it's to me, I see it as a small part of what a successful artist needs to have. Whether they be gifted in writing or playing an instrument or whatever it is, they need to have at least something there, and it needs to be backed up with a lot of work by other people around them. And I see artists that maybe are aware of that, and they realise they need to go through this kind of process. They need to accept that they need to, quote unquote, sell out and promote themselves. And it's a real and maybe emotional challenge for them to accept that, to sell out as an artist is quite, something that's very powerful for them. And I think if you can't get over that hurdle, then you'll never get to the kind of level where you can have a comfortable living and be, in some way successful to go out and reach your fans.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, as we know, a little bit of background as I work as a music producer. I've also been a working musician since I was a kid. Since I was about 15, I started playing gigs. Always had, even if I've had some odd jobs over the years when I was starting out, I've always been very focused on the idea that I'm going to do music, And I think that what this revolution has caused is the rise of what I call kind of like the middle class musician, people that aren't famous, that, have 1,000 or a couple thousand fans that can make a living, they're not rich, they're not driving, Mercedes. And if they are, it's an old one. And, but, you can live, you can have a decent life, you can even support your family, and you can be a normal person, and you can spend your time doing what you love to do. And I think the point, the something that a lot of people miss that are talking about the old style is, nobody's going to show up and give you $10 million, put you in a limousine, and now you're a rock star, and that's all you got to do is hang out and be a rock star anymore. I don't think that happens now. But to be honest, I don't think that ever happened. I think that was just the illusion that was sold to people to create the mystique of the rock star. And I just think that these days with social media and everybody's life is online 24/7, I think mystique is just not something that's part of today's fabric. I think people don't like it. I think if you're not on social media, people think you're weird. It's like, well, what did you do all day? I was at home. Well, it's like, well, I didn't see any pictures. Why didn't you check in? Whatever. And especially with, celebrities or people. I think these days people are interested in a person or in a band or in a thing, and it's like the whole thing around it, and the music is kind of like the package that it's in or something like that. I think. But again, I think it's been like that since probably the 70s and 80s, especially when MTV started, it became more about the image, and, you had to look good, and that became more important in ways, than even sounding good. And I mean, obviously, Milli Vanilli back in the day, was such a scandalous thing that they weren't singing. Nowadays, it's hard to find people in the pop music that actually do perform live. So it's just become a crazy different thing. And I think it's like everybody knows now that there's Photoshop, and everybody knows now that there's auto-tune, and everybody knows now that you can digitize things. So I think a lot of it, people want to see inside and see how it's made because people don't accept a perfect package anymore.
So, So do you think that with the constantly improving technology that has pushed music to where it is today, that the current generation that listen to popular, let's say pop music, they're so conditioned to hearing amazingly high quality recordings?
Well, yeah, I mean, but of course, first of all, I don't think it's just pop music. I think in all genres, I work in studios, so I know for a fact that in all genres, the same technology that's employed in pop music to make it perfect is used in all genres to do the same thing. So it's not just pop music, first of all. And second of all, of course, people get used to a higher standard. Back in the day when, people used to have rabbit ears on their TV, it was a blurry, terrible picture. People expect HD now, just like you expect a high quality recording. And so it has to be that. But you can do that in a small studio like this one, or you can do that in your bedroom, or you can do that on your iPad on the road, or, at a cafe. So it's so easy to do that the quality is an expectation, not a a bonus. Whereas, back in the day, what I was talking about, when you used to have to go and pay $50 an hour to go to a studio and record on 2-inch tape, and the tape itself was expensive. So if you had a high quality album sounding recording, that was something in itself. These days, you have to have that. And there has to be video. People aren't one-dimensional anymore. They want to see it, hear it. How many times have you heard people say, "Hey, did you see that new song?" Did you see that new song?
Yeah. People watch music today, right?
Yeah.
They don't listen to it.
And I'm a firm believer in also that, you can, what's your goal? If your goal is to be a musician, who cares about the way people consume music? Just give it to them in that way. I care about putting my music out and doing stuff. I don't care if people want to see a video or not. If they want to see a video with it, I'll make a video. I like videos. I grew up with MTV. So I grew up back when MTV even played music. But I grew up with the video, so that's part of my thing. And I think everybody, and especially anybody under 30 for sure, it's just the way it is. And videos are cheap now too, so everybody expects it, so you coming from the other angle, I came up through the music and playing clubs and doing all that stuff. You come from the other side. You've always been a huge fan. You've always been passionate about music. Now you've decided that you're going to be involved in the business end of music. And now you're working, I know for a fact you're working with some young artists that we're both working with in different capacities. So what's it like when you're trying to explain to these guys who are kind of young, but also kind of inexperienced, you try to get the point across of like, hey, this isn't just about you're a good guitar player, you got a great voice, this is a great song. How do you explain to kids these days a good song isn't enough? A good song's like step one.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, for me, with the artists we're talking about, one of the first conversations I had with them was to try and, clearly, as we know, they both have what we would call talent, great vocal ability, great songwriting. That's done. But what for me was equally important is their understanding of what is needed to get to the top, or at least somewhere where they want to be. Their understanding of what real work ethic is. Do they have what is needed to push themselves to this point? Because the team around them can only take them so far. They have to really believe in this and want it so much themselves. Otherwise, they're not going to get there. So I spent quite a bit of time talking to them about what they really want out of this, where they want to get to. And then showing them examples. I went through a lot of different examples of people that have got to the top and showed them the paths that they've taken to get there. And that includes a lot of the hard work around them, So I tried to paint a picture of you can't do it on your own. You need a team, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, you need some kind of talent. You can look in the top 10 of the charts and you can criticize these pop stars for whatever lacking some skills or some abilities, but at the end of the day they have something, some star quality. In addition, they probably are good singers. They probably are in one way or another deserving of where they've got to. I would say that's my opinion.
I'm sure they worked very hard.
Yeah,
whoever it is, and that's a pet peeve of mine when musician types criticize pop stars. Come on, man. If any of these people put in half the work of a Justin Bieber or a Beyonce,
Yeah.
Anyway. That's a different episode.
Are you a believer?
Yeah, no, but I respect.
I'm a believer completely.
I respect the work and I respect the product.
Yes, and so the act I was talking to, it was showing them what is needed to get where they want to get, and it goes back to your point that a great song and a great performance is only half of the journey. There's so much more work to be done, and so that was basically showing them by example from people they know that are famous, recognised, have got to where they want to be, showing them how they got there.
Yeah,
for me, that was the best way, and they understand that, and it's clear they want to get there. And so, it's a case of basically constantly reminding them that you can't just record an album and then put it out and forget about it. There's constant work. They constantly need to be writing, performing, or whatever.
And also these days, it's as I mentioned before, it's like there's so much noise in the world that it's not that people are ignoring you. It's just that there's just so much stuff that people might have heard your song and thought, wow, that was a great song. I love that. But, within 20 seconds, they're on to 10 other things and they just forgot. So you kind of constantly have to be not self-promoting, because people see through that now too. It's, nobody likes to be advertised to, but, telling the story and making people understand why it's important to you first, because if it's not important to you, it's not important to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then like with anything you do in life, it's just be good at it first, work hard at perfecting it, building on that raw talent, and then relentless hard work on making it bigger, better, more. And just constantly driving home the idea of like, this is who I am, this is what I do. Why should you like it? Why should anybody like it? Why are you going to put this on your playlist? Why are you going to spend 3 minutes to listen to my song as opposed to the billions of other songs? I mean, I think there's been enough good music already. If nobody ever wrote another song, there's still more music than any of us could ever listen to, and a lot of it is good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of arrogant to even think that I'm going to write a new song and people are going to like it. It's like, why? Why don't I just go listen to all the great songs that have already been written? So people need a reason why to do anything, and especially with something like music, it's about connecting with somebody on that emotional level, being part of a soundtrack of some time in their life. It could be a happy time, it could be at a party, it could be when you broke up with somebody, when your dog died. It could be a million reasons, but there needs to be a reason, and people need to connect with that. And the way to connect with that, with your audience as an artist, is obviously, first of all, by being there, Yeah. I mean, we're all guilty. I'm super guilty of just these days, we just got to put out, you got to do more, and more often, and just don't stop.
Yeah. And also, I think, the internet and the accessibility for everyone now, not just to create music, but to put music out, has, like you say, created this huge like cacophony of basically competition. Everyone is putting their music out, and it's difficult to be heard. And that's a reality. You can't avoid it. And I think if you just continuously promote mindlessly, it's also not going to help you.
I mean, nobody wants to be advertised to in any case.
Yeah,
right?
no,
whatever the
right,
thing is.
Right.
We all just, if a video pop-up ad comes on, you specifically don't like that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that's just, yeah.
So I think it goes back to this famous, probably now maligned idea of 1,000 true fans. I'm not sure how accurate that really is now, but the point is that they make with that is valid. You have to play to your audience. You can't please everyone. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
With your musical taste. So you have to write your music. I would say promote it, and work hard to find where your fans are. What demographic they are, where they live, what type of music they like, and just laser in your focus on those people that like your music. Ignore everything else, and those fans will tell other fans, and those fans will tell other fans. It's a bit of a cliche, but that really is true, and it takes a lot of work, but that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, and I think back to kind of the original point is like whether it's better now or or worse now or what's changed. It's like, it's always been a lot of work. It's just now we see it. Now everybody's life has been split wide open. Now we see behind the scenes. Now there's no Wizard of Oz hiding in there. That's just, that idea is gone, I think. But it's different. And I tried to tell these young guys as I was working with them in the studio, because I remember, them talking about, oh, I don't want to wear this. I don't want to, take selfies. Should I take selfies? I was like, I think just, who cares? If your audience wants to see a selfie and it's not compromising your music, if your music's what's important to you and a selfie is going to help people understand your music, then just take the stupid selfie. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, that kind of leads on to another interesting point about, we've been touching on stuff that's related to, the top of the pile, like pop music, the very pinnacle of pop music, which is inaccessible and will be unattained by 99.99% of people that we know and everyone out there knows. There's a whole machinery behind getting there, which we're not going to dive into now.
Right.
But let's talk more about people that we operate with more often. Is the indie artists on small labels or no labels?
Yeah.
And what's your take on where we are today as to, I mean, you spoke about it briefly, but how the times have changed from even only 10 years ago to today. But let's focus on today. What is it that you think indie artists should be doing to gain these fans that are actually going to, maintain a career for these indie artists?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, obviously, there's, as you mentioned, there's levels of success. And I think for a lot of people, being able to just do their music for a living is some, relatively good level of success. I think that's what a lot of people aspire to at first. And I've seen people complain about things, first of all, let me use myself as an example. I'm a music producer. I never went to school for it. I just learned by doing it. And I can tell you for sure that I couldn't have learned by doing it back in the day when, reels of tape were $100 for 15 minutes and, studios were $50 an hour. That was an art form in itself, and nobody's going to trust you to try because if you fuck it up, it's fucked up and it's gone, and the tape breaks, it gets destroyed.
Unless you get a lucky break and you get an internship in a big studio, right? Yeah, that was the way it was.
Which again, it's like, so many gatekeepers in that. Nowadays, GarageBand comes on your iPad or whatever, and that's basic, but it basically works the same way as Pro Tools or Ableton or any of the other big DAWs. So I was able to just learn by playing around until, oh yeah, now I know I need to turn this, I need to use this plugin, or I need to do this, or like, oh, this is where this EQ is honking, so I need to fix that. So first of all, just the accessibility of being able to learn stuff like that. The fact that we can put out a song now, make a video on our phones. We can record the song on our phone, make a video on our phone, put it on YouTube, and, something could happen. Probably not anything's going to happen. Probably nothing's going to happen. But something could happen. That possibility is infinitely better than the zero possibility that there used to be when that wasn't possible. So I think just that in itself, the accessibility, and also the distribution. We were talking right before we started doing this, we're talking about, you read an article about somebody complaining that they only got $5,000 for 1 million streams of their song.
Right.
That's another story. But, first of all,
over a 6-month period, I think, 5 or 6 months.
First of all, 1 million people listened to your song. Second of all, you actually got paid for it. Third of all, people seem to try to equate a stream to a sale. Mm-hmm. And just doing the logic, if somebody bought your CD and played it 1 million times, you're still getting the same $10. Okay. Now,
one time
ever. You're not getting, $5 every time somebody plays your CD.
5 cents or
whatever.
0.05 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, the point is valid, right?
Yeah. So, you should be happy about that. And people are saying the streaming services are killing music. It's like, in my opinion, big record labels are stealing the money from the artists, just like they always have done since the 50s or 40s or whenever the business started. Now, we know people that complain about these things that, first of all, wouldn't sell any records. And second of all, now actually have the opportunity that they can put their music out on a Spotify or on YouTube or on Pandora or Apple Music or wherever. And people actually do listen to it and actually can hear it. And people think, oh, it's taking away from my album sales. I concur that I believe people are hearing your music that just wouldn't have heard it before. I don't believe these types of artists on this level would have thousands of people that heard their music at all, because they wouldn't have sold 1 million CDs. They wouldn't have been played even on the radio. And if you compare it to the radio, if one radio station plays your song 10 times and they have 100,000 listeners, so therefore theoretically 1 million people, heard your song. I've seen my own royalty statements. I didn't get $5,000 for that, So I don't get people's math. What do you think? You think, okay, somebody played my song once, so now I'm going to be rich.
Yeah.
I think you're lucky that we are lucky. I am lucky that we have this kind of reach. These days.
So the first point is, like you say, the distribution is much easier. The first point is, accessibility.
First of all, making the thing is easy.
The technology access is
we could all do it cheaply, very cheaply, free.
Then as the distribution is easier.
Yeah.
And
promotion is easy.
Promotion is number 3, right?
Yeah, promotion is easy. You know, you make a bunch of friends on Facebook, you send it out. You know, like I just released a song. You know?
And that's my point is that's not enough. You know, the
exactly.
promotion is not make a video, put it on YouTube, and upload your music to whatever streaming services. That's just the very, very beginning of what you should be doing, I would say, to get any kind of regular success.
And I must add that it also is not a substitute for playing gigs, and it's not a substitute for going and meeting people, and it's not a substitute for actually being good, you know? And I mean, I know there's people that have made careers on YouTube and stuff like that, but
they're effervescent. They last,
and
they have a short span, and they're gone.
Well, and I'm saying the YouTube thing was an introduction, you know? It's like, I think maybe somebody's going to see your video, and then they'll come to a show, but it's like, you know, there's like the buzzword of monetizing. How am I going to monetize all these fans? It's like you monetize them by making them actual fans, not just somebody that happened to hear your song on YouTube, you know?
And you need some kind of catalog to back that initial fame up, right? Otherwise you burn out.
Yeah, you know? Sure. Or, I mean, there's lots of ways to do it. And I mean, it's like, you know, you just doing gigs, you have to add value somewhere. Somewhere, somehow, somebody has to make money on something if they're going to pay you to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many of these guys we know is like, oh, I'm not getting paid enough for that. I'm not getting paid enough for that. And it's like, okay, but you're not getting paid enough. But how much are you actually delivering to be able to say, why aren't you paying me? It's like, well, what value are you adding? You know, it's like, you know, I'm a great juggler. Why isn't anybody paying me to juggle? It's like, well, you know, because juggling is boring. Sorry, nobody wants to pay to see it.
Well, actually, one interesting observation for me coming into music was, you know, in outside of music, in let's say regular businesses, it's relatively kind of clear. If you want to get to this point, you can find a well-trodden path that someone else has taken to get there. You do at step A, then step B, then step C. You work this skill, or you do this thing and that thing, and eventually you'll get to where you want to get to. There's almost always some kind of guidebook or instruction manual how to get to some quite serious success. But what I saw when I came into music is it's like a minefield, first of all.
I think it's deliberately hidden paths.
But I think it's a nature of the beast because it's based in art, you know, it's not commerce. In commerce, you can't afford to have, or let's say it's not beneficial to have ambiguity. Whereas in the world of arts, there's ambiguity everywhere. It's the nature of the beast. And if you try and, let's say, commercialize art like we do, it's our job in music, you have to clear away that ambiguity. And there is no guidebook for that. There is no instruction book. You can look at other people that have done it and learn things from them. But it really struck me that you have to figure it out yourself, mostly. And it takes a lot of work. And the ones that, as you said before, the people that have made it to the top have worked so hard to get where they are with a team of people, and it's a case of trial and error. You just have to keep putting stuff out, keep promoting, keep working, and it's goes back to your point also about accessibility, or let's say distribution. Now there's many different ways of earning income, not just playing gigs, not just putting out songs on streaming. This is, you know, a new point we can talk about now is, you know, the opportunities out there now are much wider for even unsigned, relatively unknown acts to get your music or your art form out there, published, and gaining income from it, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, there's the obvious thing of, you know, licensing your music. I mean, people say, oh, that's, you know, also hard. Of course it's hard. Everything's hard, you know, but the hardest part is actually just doing the work to do it. And I mean, the other thing is with all this is like, it's not just music. There's a billion times more of everything. So there's also a billion other places where music is necessary and used, you know?
Yeah,
so
you go to Audio Jungle, right? And then you switch to, or Envato, this for marketplace for creators. You look at the Audio Jungle side, which is for, you know, for music libraries. Then you flip to the video side, and there's millions and millions of video makers, and they desperately need music for their video. So as an artist, you can write music for people's videos. And of course, I understand some artists will not be happy with, you know, it's not their thing. They don't want to write music for videos. Okay, fair enough. But my point is that if you want to make a decent income, you need to diversify your income streams. And one of the ways is to, or one of the best ways is to license your music.
I mean, I think that's, I think with the licensing thing, I think there is definitely a way to do that where you just offer your music uncompromised and then people can use it or not. Then there's the other side where people specifically write for this thing, which is almost more like scoring or whatever, or specifically trying to write commercial music. I don't consider it personally, and of course it's my opinion, but I think if you write a song and somebody wants to use it to connect to their thing, and if you don't have some kind of fundamental problem with their thing that they're trying to do, and they use it, I don't see that as much of a compromise,
Yeah.
It's somebody just interpreting your emotion, and I think that's cool. And I mean, I also have been doing music long enough to never, ever hate the player, and I mean, if you're lucky enough and hardworking enough to manage to make money and make a living off of your music, good for you, and I don't judge, and I think it's an individual choice how you feel, where the line is for you on compromise, but I think the day you decide to go pro, and if that's what your goal is, if you want to be a professional in the sense of making money, then there always are some sorts of compromises, no matter what level you're on, no matter where you are, no matter what you do in life, just generally speaking. So I think, everybody has their own personal limits and lines of what is compromise to me, where is compromise happening, So that's an individual choice. But,
Right.
you can make money lots of ways in music, and I recommend making money in lots of different ways. I mean, that's the safest way to do it, diversify.
Yeah. And at the point, I think at the point where you accept that you want to be professional, it becomes a job, of course. I mean, the creative part is the nice part, the fun part while we all do it, but you have to accept that it's a job as well at some point, which means there's parts you don't like to do, you don't want to do.
Yeah.
You have to grind it out. I just read an interesting blog entry about a guy who worked with Hans Zimmer in his studios as one of his arrangers, I think, and he said, Hans Zimmer is often criticized for being this guy who just writes, top line motifs or even less, very few simple ideas, and he farms it out to his army of minions who fill out the gaps and basically do most of the heavy lifting. And this guy said, well, that's not the case. The guy's one of the most hardest working people you can ever meet.
Yeah.
Clearly he's got some amazing vision and creative ability, but behind that his work ethic is sickening. It's insane. Like he said, in the 4 or 5 months leading up to the film, he'll be doing 14, 15, 16-hour days, 7 days a week. And then as you get closer to the final part of his work, he said everything in life just slips away and he's in the studio almost 24 hours a day, non-stop, working on this stuff, and of course he doesn't enjoy that. His art form or what he wants to be doing is somewhere else, but he understands that that's what he needs to do to maintain his position at the very top of where he is. It's just one example that you have to grind it out, you have to do this stuff. And
I mean, I think this is the prime example of if you want to be a professional in the music business, if you don't absolutely love it with all of your heart and passion, just don't waste your time, because there's way easier ways to make money.
Yeah.
But if you do, it's worth it, and it can be very rewarding.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we should probably wrap things up at this point. And I
wanted to just talk about one last thing, which was about for independent artists, about this point of labels. Just one last topic about the validity of labels today. Do we need them? Yes or no? I guess it depends on where you are and where you're shooting for. But what's your take on labels today?
What's my take on labels? I think if you're starting and you're trying to get a label, that's just a huge mistake. Labels, I mean, these days you definitely don't need a label. That's just fact. You don't need one. There's countless examples of people that didn't have one. And I think the time to get a label is when you have all the labels coming to you begging to work with you, because then you actually have some sort of leverage. I mean, in the beginning, labels used to be the people that gave you the money to go into those expensive studios and to make those expensive videos. And they had the big company leverage to get you on the radio, which also cost a lot of money, and to put magazine ads and posters out, because most of us don't start out with millions of dollars to be able to do all that. As we just said, all the things that labels used to do for you, you can do by yourself for free on an iPad. So you invest, $1,000 in a decent iPad. You can do all that stuff by yourself. Now, of course, you need to be creative, and of course, you need to do a good job. But if you're not doing all that stuff by yourself anyway, a label's not going to mess with you.
Yeah.
So I just think that the label idea, in my opinion, is dead. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just blacklisted myself in the music business. I don't know. They definitely still have some power. And of course, if you want to be Rihanna, and if you want to be, Sia, and on this level of artist, it takes a lot to get to that point without some serious weight, and financial and reputational weight, of course. But if you want to make a living and get started and be a professional, it's not necessary. And I also would say that even if you do want to be Beyonce or you want to be Rihanna, you're not going to start with the label. The label's going to come to you when you're ready.
Right. Yeah.
And they know. They have Facebook too.
Yeah. My take on what I've seen so far is that you don't need a label when you're starting out. As you say, you need to have, labels will not be interested in you, or A&R guys will not be interested in you until there's at least a buzz around you. They won't do the heavy lifting of developing you, your music and your career anymore. That horse has bolted. You have to do it yourself. You have to create your own buzz, build your own fan base, and then labels will maybe start to take an interest in you. But otherwise, you need to do it all yourself. That's the way it is today. It also depends on the genre of the music, I think, as well. If you're aiming to be in the Spotify top 50 or a Billboard chart, then of course you can't get there without a major label.
Or major help. It doesn't necessarily have to be a label.
To get to that level, the budget involved is massive, and you can't
about the
do
money.
that on your own. Yeah, but the dream is, the way I see it, is you start off as an independent artist. You get a team around you, you build some kind of buzz around you, and the ultimate goal is to get to the point where you're so good, your music and everything about you is so good that people can't ignore you. At that point, then labels will come to you, and this is the beginning of the career,
Yeah, I think, long story short, I think, first of all, you absolutely do not need a label, but even if you want a label, there's no point in looking for one, because they're going to find you when and if being the big word there, if the time is right. But the good news is you don't need it, You absolutely don't need it. So
anything else?
We covered a lot today, I think, already.
We did quite a lot.
For
30
first
minutes maybe?
Yeah, 45. I think it was a good first episode. I think there'll be a lot of stuff to talk about more. Please leave some comments.
Yeah, we part of the idea of us doing this is because we want some kind of interaction.
I think
we're both notorious for kind of hiding in the cellar and getting on with our work rather than getting out and talking to people. So
so please hit us up in the comments if you think something you agreed with, something you didn't agree with. I imagine people probably disagree with a lot of this.
If you think we're totally wrong, or if you think it's totally right, whatever, just leave a comment. We'll be happy to start a conversation with some of you guys and take it from there.
And I think we'll see you next week.
Yeah. See ya.